Welcome everybody to the April 2021 BC Mix It Up. Thank you very much for joining, enduring yet another virtual meeting, trying to have some fun with these, of course. And we've got a couple openings. We're going to make a cocktail, and then so thankful to our, I think we've only got 5 Microsoft MVPs on, but because Kristen had a scheduling change, and so I don't think she'll be able to join us. But we've got 5 Microsoft MVPs from around the world, almost. And so thankful for them joining and sharing what they feel are the best improvements with this latest release of Business Central. And boy, there are some things to get excited about, I tell you what. So before we get to that, let's go to the slides, a couple quick reminders, and let me pop over here and try to advance that. And okay, we're advancing, right? Everybody's good? Okay, so the May Mix It Up, you definitely want to mark this on your calendars. We are partnering with the Microsoft MVP Women in Tech to take on the discussion of pay equity, and going to have some special panelists on as well. And I'm really looking forward to this conversation because it's not a conversation you get to be a part of very often. Should be very, very interesting. So I hope you can make that. As always, we record these, post them out on the YouTube channel afterwards if you didn't have a chance to attend directly. And so I hope you can attend that one because it'll be an interesting discussion. And then we've got the Microsoft Business Applications Summit coming up, and I forgot the dates already on that, but there's the link to go find information on that and register for that. And I haven't taken a look at the schedule yet, so I'm not sure what's included with that. But the fact that we get to attend for free is always good. So, and then of course we've got the local user group meetings with the dynamic communities still coordinated and open to everyone. I think it's the Denver chapter is tomorrow, so you can get on that schedule. And I believe those are recorded as well, but go ahead and check those out. All right, with that, we're going to go ahead and talk about our drink of the month. And this is a special one, folks. You do want to pay attention to this one. And the tequila sangria, I've had this personally. It is yummos. And our bartender is on site this week. And so since she wasn't sure if she could attend and make a drink while she's at a client site, she went ahead and pre-recorded one for us. And I got to say, this is an entertaining one. So let's go ahead and take a look at how to make a tequila sangria. And thanks to Kim Congleton for putting in the late hours to put this together for us.
Hello, and welcome to another edition of Mix It Up. My name is Kim Congleton. I am the world's worst bartender. And as you can probably tell by the background behind me, I am in a hotel. It is not a Holiday Inn, so don't get too excited if you remember those commercials. I'm pretty sure it's not going to make me a bartender. So what you're going to get this in this month's edition of Mix It Up is my version of Hotel Sangria. I did try and record this with making a normal batch of tequila sangria, but I might have drank a little bit too much tequila before I started. And so the recording did not turn out at all, but the tequila sangria was really good. Yeah, so anyway. I know that Mark has published the real recipe, and it is a challenge to make just one batch. Normally, I kind of double or triple the recipe because it's always good to take to a party. It's one of my favorite recipes. I've been making it for a couple of years. So the real recipe is 2 lemons, 2 limes, an orange. I don't put the mint in it. It's up to you. I've never really put the mint in it. 2/3 cup agave nectar or honey, whatever you have. 1/2 cup silver tequila, and 1/4 cup fresh squeezed lime juice, and 1 bottle of white wine, chilled. And then 2 cups of lemon. I usually put the lemon lime soda. I don't really mix it in. I mix it in after as I'm pouring the drinks. So it's kind of up to you how you want to do it, but that's kind of the general recipe. So, and I've really
Oh, sorry. Dang it.
I kind of practiced at this recipe for quite a bit, so I've found that the best combination that I like is I like to use a cupcake wine. I hope you can kind of see that there. It's a Sauvignon Blanc. And for those of you who are wondering, no, I cannot speak French either. And then I love to use this tequila. It's Avion Silver. It just really has a lot of fresh, like citrus notes in it. So when you add more citrus to it, it really kind of brings out those flavors. And this with this wine, I mean, this combination is really good. Trust me, because I've probably tried at least 20 different combinations before I landed on this. So it's a well-tested recipe. Let's just put it that way. So for our hotel sangria, we have limes. We have lemon, which, you know, through the magic of television, also pretend it's an orange because somebody forgot to get an orange at the store. So we'll go with that today. So what we're going to do is I've actually sliced up about a couple slices of lemon. I'm going to mix this in my handy dandy container here, which is not very big. So this could end very badly for me. Cut up some lime, put that in there. Going to squeeze some fresh lime juice in this, and this should be fun. I'm sure this will go all over me. So we'll just squeeze some of that in there. I have no idea what the proportions are going to be on this. It's going to be either really good or really bad. If it's really bad, I'm just going to add more tequila because I think that'll work. I've got some honey. Could put a little bit of that in there. And I just realized I really have nothing to stir this with. So this should be good as well. A little bit of honey. Put a little wine in there. I have no idea how much wine I should put in there. Maybe a little bit more. This is usually where things go wrong for me, whenever I'm adding alcohol to something to mix. So I don't know. I'm about halfway full there. Sure, that sounds good. Then I also kind of, to stop myself from putting too much tequila in, I made my own measuring cup here. So we'll see if this actually works. So I've got my little line there.
Pretty sure
I'm gonna put more than that in there. Unless I taste it and it's really bad, then we're putting more in. I'll tell you that right now. So let's pour that in. Well, I mean, it smells like it's normally supposed to smell. All right, so we're gonna just kind of mix that up a little bit. Then I've got a nice little drink cup, all the finest china here in my hotel room. And let's see how this tastes. Normally I would let this sit for a day too. You know, I always sit after I'm done, but if you let it sit for a day, it really is better on the second day. So you definitely want to make it a day ahead. But this thing is always a hit at parties. Note to self, don't cut the limes the size of your water bottle. This is going to be fun in the morning when I go to put water in this and I'm like, who put tequila in this last night? I'm sure that'll happen. All right. Let's top it off with some Sprite. And let's see how it is. It's either really good or really bad. It's not bad. It's surprisingly not bad. I mean, it'll pass. I could drink this in a hotel.
That, in a word, dedication, right? Absolutely fantastic. So yes, highly encourage you all to try this. Thank you to Kimco for going the extra mile again. She even went out and got honey when she's on the road. That's really impressive. All right. Hope you all enjoyed that. And here we go. I think we are ready to get into the good stuff in this latest release and introduce our panel. If you're not sharing your webcam, please do so if you'd like. And ask questions that we're going through. We have got some incredible brain power on the call today, so let's take advantage of that. And we'll go ahead and start going through our panelists. We'll call on each one, but everybody jump in as you would like to add commentary and so forth. I put James first. He's actually first name alphabetically, but also it's approaching bedtime for James in the UK. So James, thank you for staying up. Good golly, I hope you didn't miss your dinner, but thank you very much for joining us this evening. And what's your favorite new feature or function with the April 2021 release?
That's a tough question, Mark. And no, I didn't miss dinner. I went and had dinner, and then I've come back, and I'm now gently mellowing with a glass of red wine and a few nuts just to keep me going and tide me through the evening. Actually, you know, I think the Wave 1 release 2021 has had more functionality. I've been a veteran around the nav space and the Business Central space, and I think this has got more real value in it than I've seen for a long time. So I'm going to pick a few, and apologies to everybody who goes after me because I'm probably going to steal a bit of thunder, but you know, probably the first one I'm going to hold out is actually one where I would say, you know, everything else is useless if this doesn't really sing, which is performance. So, you know, already we've tested, we've had the chance of testing some of the BC18 stuff, and they really have made progress in terms of how fast it reacts, how fast some of the pages load up, how fast some of the reports run. You know, the reports themselves, Microsoft are claiming 3 to 6 times the performance over the previous version, and you know, that just makes the whole thing sing. And for me, when I'm using Business Central, you know, doesn't matter what feature I'm trying to use. If I don't click on it and it doesn't just happen, I don't enjoy that experience. So I really want to say well done, Microsoft, for kind of doing that. I'm well known for kind of one of my notorieties is kind of standing up and saying how much some of the table extensions and some of the things they've built into the platform in the last few years hit performance if you weren't careful. So the fact that they've actually addressed some of those issues is really good. So putting that to one side and just kind of using that as a banker, you know, I spend the majority of my day consulting around kind of manufacturing. So for the first time I can remember for a very long time, they've improved some of the functionality, you know, and a whole bunch of kind of customizations that I've had in my library that I've had to take off and use time and time again have now come in and are just part of the product. So being able to specify a production route and a production bomb per SKU is one that's happened lots of times. If I produce in multiple places, the idea that I have the same machines and the same capability in every location is just never happens, right? Because you bought them at different times, they have different run times, etc. So that's one I've really wanted. Variants have become much more useful, you know, in more places, particularly production. So again, really nice. So I'm really excited to see them not just perhaps for the first time focusing on the real core part of finance, which obviously is important. And I'm sure somebody's going to mention all of the improvements around dimensions, which again make, you know, much more flexible and much more better to use than it's ever been. But getting out to kind of some of the outlier areas like production really kind of tells me that perhaps the focus is changing at Microsoft from just concentrating on the platform, which they've had to do for the last 5 years to convert it to SaaS and make that work really well. But now they're perhaps switching their focus back a little bit more to getting functionality, which my end users, I don't know about yours, you know, they care about that stuff as much as anything else. and we've got a whole long list this time, which I'll leave some of the others for somebody else to go through.
So glad you mentioned around manufacturing and production. I didn't even see that. I was so focused on finance and system admin. I didn't even realize they had some entries in that category. That's wonderful news. Yes.
And even I'll just one that's just hit me. Automatic creation of lots and serial number records as soon as you use them. Again, it's there's loads of things that you can put against, for instance, a lot number that's really useful to kind of traceability and so on. And that's functionality I've written as a customized add-on so many times I've kind of lost count. Uh-oh.
We lost James's audio.
I was scared it was me. James, you there?
Yeah, I'm
there we go.
there.
Okay, now you are.
Had out for about 30 seconds.
Oh, sorry about that. So yeah, they're ticking off, those what I call gap filler pieces of the application, which should be there and haven't been for years. And those seem to be, there's a lot more focus around doing that than perhaps some of the other, to Microsoft more, dare I say, sexy parts of, the Teams integration that they really get excited about. But actually, users care more about functionality, I think, than which part of the application which other part of Microsoft it works with.
Yeah, I think earlier this month, not the BC specific one, but the overall Dynamics launch event. I think half the sessions were on Teams. They were very excited about that. But fantastic, James. Folks, got to have some questions or comments around that. Everybody's stunned.
No,
Excellent.
I was just going to say thank you, James, because I'm with Mark. I just saw the definition where it said define lot sizes for various stages of production. And I went, oh, that's nice. But when you actually open up for the feature detail, that's where it references what you just described, which was the routing version and the planning worksheet and various production orders, et cetera. It's like sometimes the descriptions, those brief descriptions, really don't identify everything that's there. So thank you for calling attention to that.
100%. I mean, I think they publish, they have the day one when they publish the roadmap, and there's actually relatively little on that. And then as they finalize stuff, they go and stuff it back in there, and they don't say it's changed. And, one of the features I've asked for is, hey, when you update the documentation, can I have an alert? I want a SharePoint type alert that tells me this particular page has changed, right, so I can go read it again.
Yeah.
Oh, that would be great.
Yeah.
James, I've got one more question for you, because I know in the past you've tracked the ideas through the ideas portal and looked at how they've been promulgated into the product. And I'm curious, with a lot of these additions with this release, have you been tracking those ideas, or did you go back to look at how many came from that source?
Actually, I got to spend a bit of time with a couple of the engineering leads, look, ideas when they go over a certain threshold turn up in DevOps at Microsoft, and they have to either reject them or so. Those ideas definitely, if they get enough votes, they have to consider them, and they have to accept or reject them. So the idea that ideas. I'm still not 100%, because I think you can have a really great idea and kind of, but it's mass market. This is democracy. Not everybody's going to go and vote for something which is kind of esoteric and maybe, particularly partner focused. So the number of votes, it is important, but sometimes.
Uh-oh. We lost you again. James?
Hi. My
Not sure.
bandwidth seems to be, I seem to be stuttering a little bit in and out, so apologies for that.
Yeah, not sure what happened. Lost the last 10 seconds there.
Ideas, definitely. And in terms of functionality, I think the majority, everything that they put in this release, as far as I'm aware, was as a result of an idea. So platform stuff, not so much, but the functionality side, it's not going to get done if it's not an idea and it doesn't get a lot of votes.
Great insight there. Great insight. Thank you. Fantastic. So James, again, I know it's drawing late. Welcome to stay, or if you have to head off to bed, that's up to you, of course. But thank you
I
so
still
much.
have a fair glass of wine to go,
okay.
Mark, so I'm
Okay,
going to
good
stay
to see.
around and drink that and listen. Thank you.
Good call there. Excellent. Kerry, is there any way I can get you to highlight something around finance with this latest release?
Possibly. There's a ton to pick from. It's really exciting, and I can't stand it what they're doing with dimensions. I'm only going to talk about one thing because I want to, again, save things for other people, right? But one of my absolute most favorite things is what they've done with putting some additional, I'm going to say control, but it's also flexibility with dimensions. And I'm actually going to share my screen just to show you a simple little improvement here. So you guys can see my Business Central.
Yep.
Okay, excellent. So I'm sitting on the chart of accounts, and this is one thing that I teach in every single class about dimensions or financial reporting, that you have to have good controls from your chart of accounts for your dimensions. And in the past, we've had just these three fields. We've had what is the dimension code, what is the value, if anything, and then what is your value posting. And my almost blanket recommendation for most companies for the chart of accounts has been to leave things blank and code mandatory. Now, this isn't the right fit for everything. There are other configurations that can be right for you, but this is the one that I see the majority of companies using. And one of the very logical questions that almost every controller asks me on seeing this is, well, can I limit the values so that I can only have people choose a few, right? So in this example, we only have 3 values. For you guys who have dimensions, you are very likely using many more values than 3 in your different dimension groups. And being able to filter this dimension for allowed values is huge. So think of what you could do on your operating expenses as you walk through these different accounts. If you could compare to budget, and you could say, for this particular department, right, they're allowed to post to these 5 accounts, and you could put that control on those accounts. That's a huge win for accuracy and automation that can be happening on your postings, and certainly a great win for control that we're able to even more fine-tune that when we're coding things to the GL. So for those of you who are not finance folks, maybe not so exciting for you, but I can tell you we will get applause when we talk with people about this particular feature, because people have wanted that one for a good long time. But there's even more with dimensions that they've done beyond that. So I'll leave that for somebody else to talk about. But that for sure is what I'm excited about the most out of that whole suite of improvements. But as James mentioned, there's a lot with finance functionality, and that is really exciting. Many of our customers, the question they're always asking is, well, why should I upgrade, right? It's not just because they should, right? Or because they need to keep current with technology or whatever, but trying to figure out, why they should move on with this. And the really cool thing that I love about that particular question too, is that's quickly become almost completely outdated for people who've been on Business Central for a while, who are receiving those updates every single month. I had a client who went live on Business Central just this last fall. They're doing a whole ton of things with dimensions, and they made a couple of mistakes. Guess what they're real excited about that's coming up, right? All right, but that's my favorite so far.
I don't think our team is out on the edge with how excited the entire team is around the dimensions updates. I've heard that from many people, and it's going to be a huge time saver, of course. Kristen was she was going to go on for about half an hour on that very point, I think. So so it is too bad that she couldn't join us today. But thanks very much for that. Any questions about what that looks like a little bit further, or how that's going to work?
I have one question on that.
Hey, Meenakshi.
Hi everyone. So Kerry, just like you, and maybe I learned it from you, dimensions is my favorite too, and I always go for code mandatory, and obviously dimension correction is something everybody's looking forward to. One thing that I did struggle when we moved to NAV 2018 was the dimension set IDs. Those are really hard to configure and hard to figure out what to correct and what should be the value. Is that something that's being improved with this new version, new wave, or is that something that stays like that with the dimension set ID and you have to figure it out?
Right. Yeah, I honestly don't know the answer to that question. So the correction tool is pretty simple and it's very upfront. I'm really waiting to get a database that I can apply that to and try that as a test to see what those look like in a real world scenario. I've done a bunch of simulations on things, it looks okay. But you know that applying that to real world data, it informs us much better. So my jury's a little bit out on that tool yet until I get a chance to be more hands-on with it in a way that seems like, you know, it's more like what we would have in a normal business situation instead of a simulation.
Okay, I'll be waiting for that verdict.
Yeah.
I chip in with the fact that the dimension correction is only the GL. So if you report off item ledger entries and you report off the GL, and you then edit the GL entries to change the dimension set, you know, dimension sets still work the same way, but you change the dimension values. Potentially you're reporting, if you're using something like Power BI and you're reporting off multiple areas, that's not going to match up, right? So I'm a little bit, I'm definitely in the camp where do the more stringent setup to make sure your dimensions are posted right in the first place, rather than having to go back and edit them. And I think the filters are great. I think they'll reduce the number of dimensions that you actually need, because in the past you've set up more dimension sets so that you've had that fine control, and actually that's going to you know, perhaps not be required in the future.
Right.
Sorry. I was going to say, I've also done a bit of testing with that correct feature, and maybe somebody on this call knows, but I know Microsoft said that we'd have the ability as administrators to lock down closed periods or to specify that corrections must happen in open periods. I personally could not find that control in the system. So I don't know if anybody has tested that out, but even in closed posting dates and a closed accounting period, I could still, it seemed like, go and make those corrections, which obviously if you've already done your reporting for those periods, you don't want changes being made. So I don't know if anybody has found that control yet, but I wasn't able to. So that's, for me, that's like a huge gap in that.
Yeah, I think that as people think about those corrections, Kerry, they're gonna, well, maybe we should be providing some guidelines as to how to use that correctly, right? You're still making corrections to your GL, and to James's point, you're kind of making a partial correction, right? Which as an accountant makes me definitely twitchy. So I want to figure out what the right guidance is to provide to people so that they understand, you know, what the GL effect is, what the audit trail effect is, what the data effect is, right? Because those are all three very completely different things that will result from that new capability.
Yeah, exactly.
For the first time, we're kind of recommending you set the change log on GL entries.
Yeah.
Which you've never really needed to do before because you couldn't edit anything of substance. But actually changing the dimension set ID on GL entries is something you're going to want to know who did that and when, aren't you?
But are you really changing the set ID, or are you changing the values within the set?
No, because the dimension set ID is you know, maybe on other transactions, so you can't edit multiple transactions the same way. So actually it changes the dimension set ID number
Okay, good. Well, that's good to know.
Maybe to one that you've already used, but it looks at the values you've done and works out what the dimension set ID is and puts that against the entry.
Good to know.
Okay. Thanks, James. You answered both my questions without me even asking it.
Good.
Thanks, Kerry.
Fantastic. All right. Who's up? Shannon. Hi, Shannon. Oh, David changed it this time.
What's that?
People keep changing the layout, so I keep searching for people.
Gotcha.
Shannon, how are you, and how excited are you about this release?
Yeah, I'm very good, and I actually was on a cocktail webinar with Avalera right before this, so I've been enjoying a cocktail even before I came on. But I really want to try Kim's sangria because that looks amazing. I want Kim to be my bartender because she doesn't measure. So yeah, I'm very excited about the release. The Dimensions was that's like a huge win, right? I mean, just that alone, I think everyone wants to upgrade for. But my personal focus in the Microsoft space obviously is BC, but I'm also trying to get dual MVP in Microsoft Teams because I've been doing a lot of work with Teams and love it. And so for me, the most exciting feature was BC and Teams, which I was going to demonstrate for you guys. But of course, being Microsoft, everything's super glitchy. Because it's new, and I signed into one domain and then I couldn't sign out and get back into the other domain, and then my sandbox in the domain I signed in isn't on the latest version, so you can't test it yet. So I'll talk about what's coming in Teams because I've already been using BC with Teams. I use it daily with Teams. The cool thing is that before you could actually add the URL to your BC pages as a tab in Teams. So really great for accounting people who are working on budgets, or maybe AP clerks or sales clerks that are all working in the same areas and they want to reconcile AR. Well, you could actually link your AR transactions or trial balance inside Teams. And then if you don't work in Teams a lot, when you're actually working on the same page, you guys are editing the same version or seeing the same version. So you can see where people are on the page and what they're doing. So a lot of people are like, I could just go into BC and work with my team and we'd all be on the same page, yeah, theoretically, but if you guys want to kind of collaborate in one place and see what people are doing and just have everything kind of centralized, all your document storage and your BC, that was already a great feature, right? But what's coming in this new version is really kind of cool. What's going to happen is when you're in a chat or you're in a team, you'll actually see the little BC, I call it the lifesaver icon. I don't understand the icon, to be honest with you, but anyway, it's easy to spot, a little lifesaver. You actually will start to see it in your chat once you have the app installed. And then what you can do is you can actually search for any of the master records. This is the only new functionality they're putting in there essentially, but you can search for customers inside Teams, you can search for vendors, for items, and then you can actually open those records inside Teams. And then if any of you are familiar with the Outlook app, it looks very much like the Outlook app where you actually pull up the card. You can see ongoing records, outstanding records, number of sales. You can create new documents, but you're essentially working in Teams. And of course, the benefit of that, personally being in sales, is that if I'm working on something with a team and I'm in a team meeting, I could actually just share my screen and be in Teams and not have to log out and log back in and go into BC. I'm actually working inside Teams. And then you can do new transactions. So you can adjust inventory, you can create a new sales document, you can create a new purchase document. You have all that functionality that you essentially had in the Outlook app now in Teams. So it's pretty cool. I think user adoption of Teams has become huge. I honestly don't know how I ever lived without Teams, to be honest with you. It's one of my favorite tools outside of BC. But to have the two kind of together, I don't know any other ERP system that will be able to do this, right? Because it's not in the Microsoft stack. There's just, if you're looking for ways to differentiate Business Central versus what I call the 4 competitors in the market, or the 3, competitors that BC closely, is in conflict with, it's really outstanding, especially for IT departments that are I can have all my apps in one place and all my teams working together in one place and kind of control it with security. It's pretty cool. So I wish I could show you more. I'll put the link to what Microsoft put out there, but what I saw at MVP Summit and then what I saw in the business applications webinar. It looks really, really cool. I'm excited to get my hands on it, but I can't show you guys yet. So maybe one other session when we join.
The demo of the search functionality they showed a couple weeks ago from within Teams to access the BC data was, that was.
And there's
cool.
work.
Yeah.
There's work during their demo.
Right.
So if you're like me and you cross a lot of domains, things with multi-factor authentication and logging in and logging out of Microsoft accounts is never fun, especially when you're outside of your org. So anyway, just a heads up on that. That's a little glitchy still, but I think they'll work that out. So yeah, excited about that.
It does make you wonder how much they must practice before going through those, right? Or how many retakes they need or something, right? As often as we run into problems. Anyway.
Shannon, I have a question for you. I'd like your opinion on something.
Sure.
So I am really, for the first time, getting a little bit deeper into the Business Central and sales integration or lack thereof. So I'm wondering, do you think that this focus on Teams and Outlook, we're not seeing the same energy in sales, or at least I don't think we are. Do you think that they're kind of pushing towards Teams as being that collaboration space versus sales?
So there is with the 365 sales, there is that built-in adapter. In their mind, you wouldn't use the BC CRM. You would in a theoretical world, which I rarely see, I'll be honest with you, in BC space. I see most people using Salesforce or some other CRM, and then some of them are using CRM Dynamics. And then there's the on-prem versus the cloud, and there's all this mismatch, right? But in Microsoft's ultimate world, you would use 365 for sales. You would hook up the built-in connector because there's a built-in connector, which means that every time there's a new customer in sales, it comes over into BC. There is also a connector for 365 for sales for Outlook. And I think that connector also extends into Teams. So you could have your salespeople working in CRM, whatever they're doing over there should, and theoretically, if the adapter is actually working at that point, push into BC, and then you guys are kind of seeing the same data. But then,
well, we're already there, but I guess it's those documents, like you said, you can go into Teams and you can very easily see customers. Well, you can kind of in sales, you click on that link that opens up BC. So you still are going to another application.
Right. And the sales side of itself has its own Teams adapter and its own Outlook adapter. And what I tell people when they're using both, it's like if you're more of a sales role or you're using it even for vendor management on the CRM side, then you probably want those folks lining in and logging into the 365 for sales apps, right? And that's their base. But then the people who are on the accounting side should theoretically, if you're replicating your orders and your quotes and everything correctly, be able to see the same data either real time or whenever you set up that integration, right? In BC. But then it's like which CRM are you using, because now BC has a CRM and it's messy. But yeah, I think it's a hard line when they're using both. Theoretically, I would wish everybody would use both, right? But it typically is not what we're running into. And then Salesforce has its own adapter, and I shouldn't say that S word out loud, but they have their own adapter. So yeah, it's interesting. There's a million ways to get to the data once it's up in that dynamic space, which makes it even more complicated for best practice.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So Shannon, I have a question, but before that, I do want to do a shameless plug, Cynthia. Directions next week. My session is Dynamics 365 Sales versus Business Central Relationship Manager. So go watch that session. And shameless plug. And
No problem.
That you're doing that.
And Shannon, you and I will argue back and forth about the value of relationship manager all day long. Because I
think for folks who are not willing to pay for a full-fledged CRM, which is expensive, it's a great CRM tool, right? But you're eventually going to outgrow it, but for having a free CRM tool inside of ERP, it's really not that bad,
Look, plus I plug NewView because of your fantastic blog series that you have on the relationship manager. But Shannon, real quick question on your testing that you've done with Teams. Have you tested both web client and the actual app? Have you tried are you able to get the same integration between Business Central if you're using Teams through your browser versus Teams app?
Oh, I don't use Teams in my browser anymore. I usually just use my Teams app.
That would help with your
tried it in
authentication.
browser. I usually tell people when I'm teaching them Teams, don't use it in the browser because it's such a pain in the neck. But
I know they've added a lot of functionality to that. That'll also help with your login issues. If
yeah,
you have a lot of browser sessions.
That's true. I'm gonna have to test it, Dave. That's a really good.
I've tried that, David. So I can chip in with that because I use Teams in my own organization, and
Right.
when I have to change organization, it's a right pain. So I tried to set up a demo on a demo environment to use the Teams in the browser and link it to Business Central. Just didn't work. Just didn't even try to work.
Yeah, and I noticed with the Business
showed.
Central Outlook app, it never works in the browser well. It always works better on desktop. So it's like some of this stuff, they really just need to figure out the MFA and like multiple domains, because not everybody works in the same domain, but it's really built for you to be in one domain world. And then once you leave your domain and you go somewhere else, everything breaks. Everything
great.
breaks.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Yes, I know we could go on a long time about the CRM integration, but I'm anxious to see what Shawn has for us. And Shawn, I've got a couple of slides for you. Are you ready?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
All right. What do you have to share with us?
So a couple of things I wanted to share about this wave. Like everyone else said, there's some cool things. I'm going to share my screen instead of the slides, if that's okay, Mark.
Sure. How about it?
So just to kind of piggyback before I do on the comment about dimensions and where we're at with it, and I'll add some color, at least from my perspective, to it. So one kind of argument is that even though we're only able to change the dimension at the GL level, half right is better than not right at all, kind of. You know what I mean? Like at least you can get the dimension right on your financial reporting level at that level. So I think that's an interesting discussion, interesting debate, because I'm pretty excited about the ability to change the dimension at the financial level. I hear about this request a lot. I'm going to share my screen and show it. Definitely see both sides, what maybe applying more controls first. Let's do it the right way. Let me share the right screen and not the link here. I can't find my Teams. Shannon, help me with my Teams. There we go.
It's like the little T button, purple.
Tricky.
I didn't know they had a Minecraft setup. That's pretty funny.
That's cool. Okay, so here you see my Business Central, I imagine, and here. Yep. Yeah, I'm just going to very quickly show how easy this is. So I have a posted general ledger entry, and I'm just going to go to my entries window. And from here, this new feature, it's been in private preview or early preview since the beginning of March, I think. And so right from any entry, we can go to entry and then correct dimensions. And on here, just want to mention on this particular window, it does keep a little bit of a log. I'm not sure how consistent, if there's a new log entry every time there's a change. In this particular case, I have no dimension set up on here, but if me scroll down to something that has one, might make it a little bit easier here. And so right in here, we can just simply change the dimension code from one to the other, which I think this is super helpful. And we keep a little bit of a log record. We can even see, we can validate it, make sure we're not breaking any rules. And I love this. I think this is a welcome change. The other one that I wanted to share, and I'm surprised nobody mentioned it in the finance area, maybe because I used to be a GL accountant. I did bank reconciliations 1 week out of every month. That was my job. I used to love it. If you do that now, check with anybody in the space on how to improve your bank reconciliation processes. But I wanted to show the new feature in here, so you could take in your bank reconciliation and define a data configuration so that you can map your download from your bank, right? So that you automatically import those transactions. Now you might use the Yodlee connector, but that's not as reliable as I think we probably all think Microsoft and Yodlee think it is. But this new feature in their under assisted setup does a lot of that work for us in terms of building out the mapping and data configuration, assigning it to the bank account so that it knows which setup to use when you do your bank import. So I just went into assisted setup. I'm in the new version. Let's see. Am I in the new version? I thought I was. There we go. Set up a bank statement file. Now this, I'm just going to launch this little wizard. Real easy to do. I could download a sample statement from my bank, which I already have. So I'm just going to go next. I'm going to upload the bank statement. That's my sample. I'm just going to grab this CSV file. It has to be a CSV file. The length of the string is 34, which must be less than 20 characters. Fantastic. Oh, my file name's too long. Come on, Microsoft. Come on, that's silly.
Shawn, I think everybody who does this is going to run into that error because I did also. It's too short of a string.
Right, because that's a great point. We should probably contact someone right away because these files that come from the bank, right, they're not going to be short. They're going to have date and timestamp most likely. I went ahead and renamed mine real quick. At least the error made sense and we were able to get past it. So woohoo, go me, my file successfully uploaded. I can define this myself if I want to, but what's the point? We could do that already, you know, in the data configuration setup windows. We could do this already, but this does it for us. It does have to be a CSV file, which I thought to be interesting. So here we're going to skip our header row. In my case, I have a header row. It picks up the delimiter. My delimiter is a column. I have 7 columns. You can kind of see my sample data set here. I hit next. Date column is 6. Looks like it's good. Amount column. I didn't do this as a dry run beforehand, so this is actually pretty easy. And so then we'll do the date. This should be month, right? Well, we'll leave it go. And then next. Now we're going to pick the bank account that this gets set to. We'll just put it to my checking. I'll replace what's already there. And away we go. Now, next time we go, that's it. That's really it. Now, next time we go to bank reconciliation, all we have to do, oops, cash management. I never remember that. All we have to do is go into there and it's going to already be set up for us to go when we go to import. It's going to know that that is our template we're going to use. So I can grab that, import it, and there we go. That's pretty cool. Nice little feature. Save some work. What do you think?
Woohoo!
I was just going to say love, 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 because I think some of the reason that people don't do this is because it's too hard to figure out how to get the file in. I think that was the biggest stumbling block to using that functionality. The other stumbling block was that there was not a report when you use the auto match function that looked like what we're used to in North America, and they fixed that, I think, with the last wave, if I remember correctly.
Right, and the name that we give it, and you can see we can come in and set this up ourselves, but why bother now that we have this if you have a CSV file from the bank? Pretty cool. Really, really like that.
So I wonder, Shawn, if we can use that feature in our Business Central that's updated to create a file that for the data exchange that we could export and then import for somebody who doesn't have the newest update because they're on premise.
Absolutely, you can. I've done that for an existing customer. They weren't ready to be upgraded, but they wanted this feature. And even though we could have built it for them, it only takes 30 seconds, as you saw. So we just exported that data exchange configuration and imported their tenant and worked just fine.
Excellent. By the way, you can tell that was one of my favorites.
Yeah, for sure.
Hey, great walkthrough, especially when you can see it happen so quickly, Shawn. Thank you very much.
For sure.
All right. I want to make sure we have plenty of time for Steve to wow us as well. Steve, what do you have?
Can
I think you're on mute. There you go. Yeah.
Had to find the unmute button. So I am just trying to pull together a couple slides. Sorry, I've had a busy day, but there were a couple things on the, what did they call it? The server and database presentation of all things. And there were several hidden gems, and these aren't, sexy UI features or necessarily end user direct improvements, but I think they're pretty significant. So let me pull in one last screenshot here, if I can get my act together. And there we go.
And for everybody watching, like we had zero coordination among everyone as to what they were going to talk about. So I find it just fun that we're covering so many different topics here. Thank you.
Okay, so let me see if I can figure out how to share a window in Teams. 1, 2, 3. Okay, is this right? There we go. Okay, can you see a slide?
Yes.
Okay, so one of the things, I'm a big API guy. I've done a lot of integrations in my former life of business and Dynamics GP, and integrated millions of transactions and records. And one of the things that is near and dear to my heart is our system APIs. And Business Central has what appears to be a fantastic API infrastructure. And they have been working very hard on improving that continuously. And they, with the latest release, they are estimating that the API performance in the latest version could be 5 to 6 times faster. So that's a pretty big deal for a lot of customers that I work with that import tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, or even millions of records into their ERP systems. And now they'll likely run into some other bottleneck in the ERP system, right? But API performance is a pretty big deal. So I thought that was very impressive. Next up, also related to API calls, is instead of having to submit individual transactions, the OData, they've added an OData batch parameter, which supports multiple transactions in a single submission. So if you want to submit 10 transactions, for instance, at once, you can do that in a batch. And one nice thing, which, pros and cons, but if one of those fails, the entire batch will roll back. And so there are certain situations where you want that. So if one of your transactions doesn't go through, you don't necessarily want to have to deal with a bunch of the transactions that did, because then you'll have an incomplete batch. So I thought that was a pretty nice addition. And next to last here, they worked apparently very hard on reports. And my colleagues from the Dynamics GP world, I'm sure we all share a common love for the Dynamics GP report writer tool. But one of the things it was not good at was performance. And in Business Central, I believe this is RDLC reports, they're seeing that reports are now 3 to 6 times faster on the 17.0 platform and above. That's a pretty huge improvement. And from my perspective, the user experience is a big deal, but the amount of resources and time spent on retrieving and assembling that data, it puts a load on the database, which can cause contention issues with other processes. So while it is nice to have that report appear faster, for very high volume environments, it's a much bigger deal that you're not blocking processes elsewhere throughout the system. So improving reports, particularly large ones, is a big deal. And the biggest one, I think, for many, many people who are not in love with RDLC reports is report extensibility. So now we will be able to create report extensions rather than have to create entirely new reports if we just want to add a few fields and add those new fields onto the report. We'll be able to do that through a much smaller extension to an existing report. So I'm very excited to give that a try. So with that, can you kick me out of this screen share?
Sure can. And
okay. There we go. Okay.
There we go.
That was what I found interesting.
All right. Great point. Not especially right, being beyond being able to get your report faster, it's the what else are you blocking in the meantime, and being able to process everything else faster. So that actually brings it full circle to James's comments up front about performance improvement. So I personally love that they're covering a wide variety of areas, especially with this release, and we heard that wide variety there. But any questions for Steve or really any of the MVPs? I don't see any. I don't hear any. Well, as always, if you think of something afterwards, send it over and I will get it onto the MVP, and I'm sure they would enjoy being challenged. A little bit of head nodding, a little bit of smiling going on there. All right. Well, fantastic. I put the survey link out in the chat there. And so, as always, let us know your feedback. I hope that you discovered something new and in particular something exciting today. I think I'm sharing the right screen again. I again want to thank our MVPs for taking the time to join us. They have a lot of demands on their schedule, besides just running the companies that they do, making sure that they are helping out in the community. So we always enjoy spending time with them. So thank you very much to the MVPs. And let me go ahead and remind everybody about our May Mix It Up, again, partnering with the Microsoft MVP Women in Tech, talk about pay equity. If you're a member of the meetup group, you'll be notified automatically about this. So that's the best way to keep in touch. Of course, any questions at any point, let me know and we can help you out with that. And I think that's it, everyone. I hope you're staying healthy. Looking forward to summer, and take care. Thanks very much for joining today.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Mark.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Take care. Bye.